Hi, Tom Andreas here, and I want to talk to you about how to put panels together today. Panels are a very important part of the wood industry. These panels are much better than using an individual piece of wood that might be, say, this wide, because that piece of wood will tend to warp. And if you do a panel properly, like I'm going to show you in this video, you won't have that problem with warping, and you can use this for drawer fronts, for moldings. You can use it for cabinet sides, everything, and you will really have much better product when you're done. And so in my shop, what I like to do basically is to work the wood up, and I almost never use a wide full-length piece because of the issues of warping. So pretty much everything that goes through our shop is the first thing that it's done is it's ripped up and it's turned into panels. And so as you can imagine, this is pretty nice to work with when you're done because you can treat it like a sheet of plywood. Right now what I have is all the material that is going to go into a panel. Now it's pretty standard in the industry to have 2-inch wide strips, and they work pretty nicely because what we're going to do then is we're going to laminate all of these together and make a panel. So I have these all ripped out, and then we've used the planer to go ahead and plane both sides of them so that we have a very uniform rip width. And so when we put them together, they won't be fighting each other. A couple of things about a clamp table and how to take care of a clamp table. A lot of people think that you just use your clamps and you don't ever have to take care of them. That is absolutely not true. You've got to keep your clamps lubricated. These are Jorgensen clamps, which I think are probably the best clamps in the industry right now. They're made out of a really high carbon steel, and they're very resilient. These have been on here for a couple of years, and they just don't show any signs of getting old and not working and not having these little ratchet mechanism catch. But one of the reasons why they're still in good working condition is because we take care of them, and I just want to go over that for a second. One of the first things that you need to do is make sure that your clamps are clean, and so a lot of times you can take this and go through and scrape these and get the glue off. Now the reason that glue is coming off, I'm going to show you in just a second, is because the clamps have been oiled properly. And I like to use a pretty heavy grade of lubricant to do this, and what I usually use is just like 80-90 weight gear oil. And so I keep this in the shop all the time, and what we want to do is to put a light coat of this through the full length of the beam. Now, this doesn't have any negative effect whatsoever on your wood, and then because your wood will just take that, it'll soak that grease up, but then when you go to plane it, it'll be gone. The other thing that you need to do that a lot of people forget to do is to go ahead and lubricate the screws. And it would surprise you to know how much of a difference that makes. So taking care of your clamp rack is a huge part of keeping it working. And you'll like it a lot better if you go ahead and lubricate it like that, because the glue, as you saw, just comes flying off of it, and then your boards come off of it real nice, and just it'll improve things in your shop a lot. The first thing that we need to do when we get our individual pieces ready for lamination is get them on the clamp table, and then let's select them and randomize them so we don't have all dark pieces and then white and then light pieces. And the camera's a little bit hard to pick this up, but what you need to be able to do then is to look at these pieces, and you need to alternate kind of a light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. Nothing looks more unbalanced than to have dark strips on one side and light strips on the other. The other problem with that, and the reason you want to randomize it, is because if all these pieces came out of one piece of wood, it's going to retain its warp characteristics, and if all of these came out of another piece of wood, then it's going to retain its unique warp characteristics. And so if we alternate those slats, then they will oppose each other's warp characteristics, and the panel will stay much flatter once it's made. Okay, so the next most important thing that you need to do is to go ahead and set it so that each strip has an alternating grain pattern from the outside of the wood to the inside of the wood. So the best way to do that is to look at the end grain of each strip in the panel and mark it. So right now The annular rings are in that direction on this piece. Okay, so what you see is smiley faces up and down, and so you've got to put the mark so that each of those end grains is correct. Now, if you can't tell which way it's going, it's probably going to be pretty stable dimensionally and it won't give you trouble. Okay, so what I need to do then is I need to alternate down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and down. So this panel now is going to resist warping much better, because what we know about wood is that sapwood, which is closer to the bark, is more porous and less dense than heartwood, and so sapwood tends to expand and contract with moisture more, which is what causes warping. And so if we alternate the warp with each individual piece as we go across here, what we do is we stabilize that panel so that it will be dimensionally stable once it goes through the planer, and it'll act a whole lot better over time as it opposes its own forces. What we're going to do next is we want to get all these edges glued up so that we can go ahead and assemble the panel. And I just want to show you a trick that we like to use to get that straight. So I've got them all turned on their edge where they're going to be glued, and I like to use a board to kind of lock them in, and then I compress about every other clamp to get it flat. And the reason I compress it is so that the glue doesn't go down in between them. If it goes in between them, it gives you all kinds of fits. Okay. A couple of things you need to know about glue. There are water-based yellow glues, and there are non-water-based yellow glues. Obviously, if you're going to do a cutting board, you're going to have something that's waterproof, that's going to be water resistant. This particular one is the regular, so it would not be what you would want to use if you were doing a cutting board. But on a panel, it's going to work great because we're not planning on being able to submerge that. A couple other things I want you to know about is how to apply glue, and I really like this particular product from GlueBot. And what I like about it is that you don't have to tip it over to use it, because if you look at it, it comes up through the bottom and out the spout, so you can hold it naturally as you use it. There are three things that you need to know about terminology-wise when you're dealing with glue, and that is the flash time, the set time, and the dry time. And so the flash time is the amount of time that it takes for the glue to flash and hold and kind of lock. And that's really important when you're clamping, because once it flashes, then it kind of sets up like concrete sets up. You can tell the flash time, it's the time that it takes for your fingers to kind of lock up and hold together so that you can't move them. So if you take this piece of wood, and you can see it's not straight, but you can see that it's all of a sudden kind of locking, and then it locks, and now all of a sudden it won't move anymore. Okay, so we've kind of got it. That's flash time. Flash time is usually somewhere, just like 15 seconds once you apply it. And basically what's happening is that it's going into the vascular system of the wood. It's inundating that and forming a bond, like it's sort of concreting it together on a microscopic level. So the next thing is the set time. And set time means how long does this have to set in the clamps before you can take it out. So the set time on this glue is about 25 minutes. It's actually not 25 minutes, but I take it out to 25 minutes because I don't like to have a panel ever pop apart if there's been an issue with clamping. So I add another 5 minutes on it. That's just insurance. And so the last time is, the last thing that you need to know is the dry time. And so the dry time is how long is it before you can take it over to the planer and plane it. Now in my shop, we don't plane anything for 24 hours. And the reason is because if the glue beads, it takes a little while for the glue beads on the bottom side of this panel to completely dry. And if you were to run that thing through the planer, you would have glue that would squirt out from not completely dry beads. and it would gum up the rollers and it would gum up the teeth in the planer. And so we don't do that. 24 hours is dry time in this shop. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and apply the glue to the edges. And I like to use a brush to do this. It just takes too long to do every individual edge. So I want to show you kind of how we do this. So once I kind of screed it around, then I'm going to go ahead and pull this at an angle now. Notice that I'm not pulling it back on the piece. If you watch right here, watch what happens to my glue when I come back this way. That is not what we want to do with the glue. Okay, now that I've got it where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and level it out. Now you know that you have the right amount of glue on the grain, the end grain, when you can see the color, but you can't really see the actual grain very well. So as you look at this, you can kind of see color under it, but it's pretty opaque when you go to really look at the grain. So now at this point, I'm ready to set this aside and remove this glue, and I'm going to loosen my clamps, bringing them all back to the same location up against the back of the clamp rack so that the fronts of all of these clamps are about exactly in line with each other. Then I'll back these off. And I'll position each of these slats in the proper location. Now you didn't see earlier, but I pulled the last board off. We don't need to glue it. Put it on now. And then at this point we can bring the clamps up. And we can come right here and apply some down pressure to equalize that panel. And I like to jump to the clamps. And if you use this board, it works very nice to get each slat aligned. That looks better. The end gets a little bit wild sometimes. So now I have that in the right position, and I can bring all of the clamps at this point up. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind as you deal with clamp pressure is that you don't bring a clamp all the way up tight right away. The wood grain has a vascular system, just like your arteries in your body and your capillaries, and you need to give that glue time to inundate that vascular system. And so the more that it can inundate that system, the better a wood joint you will have, because the wood gets interlinked with the glue. And that's why a glue joint should be stronger than the actual wood if you do it properly. So I'm just going to keep working across this clamp rack, giving uniform tension across the panel. And what's happening is that the glue is forcing its way into the vascular system in the wood. And I keep getting kind of, it's magical, you know, because as the glue is hydraulically pressed into those little micro vesicles in the wood, all of a sudden I can get a little bit more tension on the clamp, and I know that it's working properly. Okay, that's about it. Now, I'm going to grab this board. And the last thing that we want to do then is to take this board that we use for alignment, and we want to knock down the glue. The reason we're knocking the glue down is because the next operation that you'll run into is that when this is dry, it goes to the planer, and it's going to roll over the roller wheels in the planer. And so we want a flat surface to be down on the planer, and the upper surface that has all of the saggy glue drips to be up. And when that's up, then the planer will knock that off first. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, click the like button and subscribe to the channel.